Hello, I am joined by the water polo master, Dozza.
Hello, everyone. Of all the way to introduce me, I didn't think it would be that, but you know.
I keep I keep in suspense. Um, yeah, so you signed up to be an NA owner, I believe, for the first time since you weren't an owner in season one.
No, I was not. I was a owner in EU though, so I do have experience.
Right, so let's talk about that experience. How did the EU HDL go?
Um, we got off to a strong start. We won our first game. We beat at the time the team that were the favourites. We won 15-11. And things were really looking up for us. We had a strong team. We had a good core, and then we had some stable players that could really just hold their own and allow the people to get the picks. Second game didn't go so well. I think we ended up losing 15-10, something like that. Yeah, it was quite bad. Like we put up a good fight, but we were just outskilled. But it was the team with Bob. They had Fupa, they had Ben. So there's some really good players, and we were just outmatched. Third game was where things really started to go downhill. We were 13-3 up, and we ended up losing the game 15-13,
We're
which,
13-3 up.
yep, and we ended up losing the game 15-13. It was quite possibly one of the most demoralizing things I've ever seen in Holdfast. It was embarrassing, really.
I think I've ever heard of
I,
a group fight team being
it was
13-3 up.
honestly, it was so we were losing the same for the same thing every time. They were just doing a mid push, and our mid would just break and instantly die, and they did it every single round. And I tried so many strategies to deal with it, and literally just every round our mid went down, and there was nothing that the flank could do, and it was everyone came off the group fight very, very demoralized, and I ended up trading my first, fourth, and yeah, I ended up trading my first and fourth pick for I think it was both of I took Elf's second pick and his third, and then his sixth, I think, something like that. So I ended up doing a big reshuffle of the team to try and claw something back after that, because at the time I believe there was 10 games in the season, not just 5. So I still thought we had time to get the team back working together and try and make a comeback late into the season. But it turned out there was only 5 games in the season. The next game, I think we lost 15-6. And then at that point, we were already out. So we went into the last game. It was just a laugh. We had a bit of fun. But yeah, I think that third game really hammered the nail in the coffin for the team, which really didn't help. I know I made some mistakes, IGL in that game, clearly, because I have also never heard of a team to lose from 13-3. It was embarrassing. So, but yeah,
Yeah, so as a team owner, like your main responsibility is obviously drafting a team, right?
yes, of course.
So that IGL responsibility, like you can take it upon yourself. Obviously, you are the leader of
Yes.
the team, but you can also sort of delegate it to someone else.
Yes, of course. Well, that's what we kind of were doing. Obviously, I picked Draco first overall, and I'd IGL some rounds, and where he thought that he could bring something better to the table, or he had an idea that he wanted to line up to try, and he thought he could win a round, then he'd IGL around. And obviously, I'm more than happy if I draft an extremely skilled IGL this season. I am more than happy for them to take the reins. I'm not, just because I'm the owner, I'm not going to go around saying I'm the best IGL in the team. I probably won't be. And if someone feels they have more experience and they're better suited to the job, I'm more than happy to let them step up.
So usually when like an EU signs up for anything NA, like they're not really
Yes.
like in touch with the community, and you know how it
Yes.
is. But I
Yeah.
think you're like a different case because you're talking to NAs more than NAs are talking to each other. Like it seems
Yeah,
like, right?
yeah, I'd like to think that I am quite integrated with the community. I have a lot of friends in NA, and I'd like to imagine that they'd be happy to have a chat with me any time of the week. So I think that I'm not out of touch. I think I have quite a good understanding of who I can draft to make the best team, if possible. So I'm really going into it, looking forward to it.
So like, what are some of your strategies? Because I know you have the number one pick, and I don't think it's much of a
Yes,
secret that
well,
you're picking number one.
it's rumored that I have the number one pick. We are officially waiting for that confirmation from the admins, but it is most likely looking like I will have number one pick.
Well,
And
unless Trimator gets approved, I think you have
yeah,
the number
yeah,
one pick.
or JMO, or JMO.
Yeah, or JMO.
I guess we'll see, won't we? But no, I don't think it's a big secret who I will be picking. I was conflicted between two, but one of them's off the table now. So I don't even need to worry about that. So I think everyone knows who I will be picking. So I think I'm gonna try and get a conversation with him beforehand. Sit down, see who he works well with, see who he doesn't work well with, and I'm gonna try and I want depth in my team. I think that was what I was missing in EU. We had some big players, we had some all right players, but our weekend players were very weak. And I want, if possible, to have more depth in the team. I want players that maybe aren't going to win a 4v1, but when it comes to the line, they're not going to be dying to straight stab. So I think that's what can really kill a team if you're getting the same person picked every single time. It becomes difficult to do anything because you're just trying to refrag him every single time. So I'm really looking for those first 10 picks. I think are crucial. If you can get those first 10 picks right, and you can get 10 really solid players, I think you have a really good core to work around.
Depth is really important because like you can draft like three like top fraggers, but what if those top fraggers are getting held up on the outside?
Exactly.
Right? Well, then nothing's happening.
Exactly. And anyone can go onto a flank and just hold a stab. You don't have to be a superstar to do that. And if that happens, you need people in your middle. You need your connector areas to be able to frag if that's the case. Because otherwise you're not gonna win. You're not gonna win. You need people that can kill. Is that simple really?
So like scouting wise, like what are you looking for in players?
Obviously I have a few people in mind that I personally work well with and I think work really well in a team. Um, I'm looking more at NAs. Obviously, I have a few EUs in mind who I wouldn't mind picking up maybe a couple of rounds into the draft. But I am looking. Most of the players that I'm looking at the moment are flanks, so I'm really going to start trying to go to pickups and see who's playing in the mid, who can really hold down that mid solidly, and who's going to win the mid really. Obviously, my first pick can play kind of anywhere, as a lot of people have seen. So I need people in mid that can play off him as well. It's all right being a superstar, but if you have people that can play off one pick, two picks, then they're just going to steamroll the mid. And as everyone knows, if you win the mid, you should win the game, really. So I'm looking for that really. I'm looking for those solid NAs that are just gonna do their job. They're not. I don't really want any big personalities in the team. I think it becomes difficult if you have too many big personalities in the team. They clash. They create problems. Like if you look at, obviously, I was on Paprika's team last year. There was a lot of big personalities in that team, and it didn't work out, as a lot of people have seen. So I want people that are going to work well together. I want synergy. I want people that have played together, that know what they're doing with each other, and are going to win me games. Really, it's that simple.
Now with pickups, it's like I guess you have to take what you see in pickups with a grain of salt because
obviously,
like anyone can just hop in and start spectating a pickups match.
Yeah.
But I think the real talent is in like the regimental like friendlies, but I guess they're kind
Yes.
of harder because you can't really like spectate unless you
Well,
have like a
exactly. I
capacitor and
have
stuff.
been looking at a lot of the scoreboards. I've been seeing who's been doing well, who hasn't been doing well. Um, so there's a lot of people I'm sure that don't look at the scoreboards and just go off merit of what they believe. But the thing about group fights is that, like scoreboards, they actually give you a good perception of how good a player is. Because if they're going 3-20, but everyone rates them as a good player, are they really a good player? Why are they going 3-20 in that instance? So I really think you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. Obviously, someone could be having a really bad day. They're playing next to someone that can't block. They're losing their flank every time. But I think scoreboards are a very good indicator of how good a player can be or how good they cannot be.
Because if you're seeing someone that's consistently like in the top three, like that's probably for a
Exactly.
good reason, right?
Exactly. Like, even if their team in general is bad, if they're consistently top fragging and they're killing 20 more people than the second on their team, there is a reason why they're doing that, and it's probably because they're a very good player. So,
Right.
yeah.
I want to talk to you about like availability versus melee ability because I think this has
Okay,
become like a pretty
yes.
hot topic, especially
It
with
has,
this.
yes.
And I guess like if you were to compare it to real life, I guess it would be players that are like really talented but injury prone. I suppose to be the
Yes.
best way to compare this. Um, so I guess it's kind of a gamble to take someone who has like a spotty attendance but is like
Yes.
really really good, right? But I feel like you sort of need to take risks in order to come out on top because if you play it safe, you're not going to get very far because everyone else is also
Yeah.
playing safe, right? So what's your take on that?
Well, I completely agree. It's a bit of a balancing act, in my opinion. If you look at EU HCL last year, obviously, well, it was this year actually. I drafted Draco first. Pi drafted Bob second. Now, the only reason I didn't draft Bob first was because of his unreliability. Obviously, everyone knows Bob is a great meleeer. He's a great group fighter, but I didn't believe that Bob would show up enough for me to warrant picking him first and building my entire team around him. And in the first game of Pi's league, Bob didn't show up, and everyone thought Pi had made this massive mistake by drafting this guy that wasn't going to show up. And then Bob actually showed up for all the rest of the games and they ended up winning the tournament. So I think Pi took a massive gamble, but clearly it worked out well for him. If something like that's going to happen again, I don't know. Obviously, if you look at Sin, we don't know how good Sin is at the moment. I'm sure he's still not that bad, but is he going to turn up to every group fight? Is he going to be available all the time? It's the same as a lot of EUs. Obviously, this is an NA league, so we don't know what time the matches are going to be. Are they going to make all these games? So I think I agree, taking risks can work, but I think it could also break your team. If you draft a load of people that are very unreliable and then you go into a game and no one shows up, you can't win. I think it's a really difficult thing to get right. But if you do pull it off, it can work very well.
So maybe it's worth it to like draft a core, but then maybe take a gamble on one
Yes.
person.
Yeah, I said maybe one or two. Even like if because you got to think everyone knows who the unreliable people are. So obviously, if they're not taking risks, they're not going to pick them up. So what you can even afford to do is leave them for a few rounds and let them sit there because you know that no one else is going to pick them up, and then you've actually picked yourself up a superstar. Well, not a superstar, a stud or a very good player.
Cheap, yeah.
Yeah, on the cheap because no one else is willing to take that risk with them. So if in that case, and if they then show up, you've got them for free, basically. It's been a great draft. But if they don't show up, you've wasted a pick that could have been used on someone else. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Indeed, it is. Let's see here. How do you think a player can increase their quote unquote draft stock? Is it just like doing well all the time? Is it like showing up to stuff? Like, what do you think?
I think getting yourself out there. I'm sure there's a lot of really good meleeers out there in the community that just aren't well known. Like if you look at Polish from the TRRB, everyone knows he's a great meleeer, but he's never in the community, never going to pickups, never entering tournaments. He's not even signing up
I don't think he signed
for the
up.
draft league. I spoke to him about it. I said, "Look, like, do you want to sign up? Obviously, I'm looking at running a team. I'd love to have you on it." And he said, "No, I'm just not interested." So there are people out there that just don't want to be well known, and then there are the people that are almost trying too hard. They go into everything, and they're almost going to burn themselves out at this point if they keep doing melee so much. So I think if you go to 1 or 2 pickups a week, you do well in them. You go to a group fight with your regiment. You're in the top 5. You're in the top 6 of your team. I think as long as you can prove that you are consistently a good meleeer, people will pick up on you, and people will start to notice you.
Indeed, indeed. Let's see here. Yeah, there's like not going to be any waivers this time around, right?
No.
I think their season 1 obviously had waivers that
Yes.
did not end up being a good system.
Yeah.
I think because we originally designed it so like there would only be like kind of like average-ish people signing up late, but then we had Brad and Liam and Janter just dropping in streams. So I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
So euhdl, you guys had like some form of a waiver where like the owners sort of like voted on it.
Yeah,
or
what
something?
we had was we allowed people to sign up late. They weren't put in a team, and then what would happen is if one of the teams had players drop out or players that couldn't make it, they could then pick one of those late sign-ups, and all the other captains would agree on it, and then they'd get that player. So what happened was Kappa, his second and third pick both didn't show up because of real-life commitments. So he then ended up drafting Pepperoni, Yannick, and someone else, and all the captains agreed on it because they said, look, it's unfair that he's drafted these 2 people that haven't then turned up. So I think that worked quite well when you get all the captains to agree on it, and there's a good reason for you getting those players. Obviously, just putting those players in for the sake of it because they were too lazy to sign up. I don't think that's a good system personally. I think the way the EU one was done quite well.
I think there's going to be 8 owners, right? So that just increases the chance of at least one getting burnt on people not showing up.
True.
So I think like some form of like some like backup plan just to like not make that team overpowered, but just like I guess not in the gutter would be the best way to phrase it.
I agree, and I think that's where the EU one worked so well because obviously, if Kappa didn't have 3 extra good players, he probably would have got shit on by a lot of teams. So I think just having that pool of players there that are ready to be called up if they're needed, I think is a much better way of doing it than just throwing them into the team for the sake of it.
I want to talk a bit about like the commissioner bias, and I was a commissioner for season 1, so I know about this too well. But I think it was sort of like taking to an extreme, maybe with the EUHDL. I know it's like some controversy happened with Greasy. So like, what are your thoughts on what happened? What went down there?
So, I mean, it's kind of a running theme in HDL, and obviously with you putting yourself onto the waivers.
Hey, I didn't win. At least I didn't win, okay? I'm clear.
I mean, you got to the finals, though. But I think, I obviously don't know the full story of what happened. All I know is that Greasy was unhappy with the team that he was on at the time. I don't think he was actively asking for a trade, but I think him and the team leader at the time were having differences. They weren't really working together, and obviously, Greasy's obviously quite a big personality. Like he's a very good group fighter. He's a very good IGL. But if he doesn't like someone, I think there can be problems there. So I think at the time, the team leader was trying to do what he believed was best for his team. But really what he did was fuck over every other team in the league by trading quite literally one of the best group fighters in the game for someone that was mediocre at best at the time. So obviously I can't really comment. I don't know everything that went down. I don't know if Greasy intentionally got himself traded. I don't know if Band-Aid sold him off just for the sake of it. I don't know if Pi swindled it somehow. But I think there were a lot of people at the time that were unhappy with the trade. Obviously, I was already out by then, so it didn't really affect me that much. But I can understand where some people are coming from when they say, because on paper and in practice, the trade was completely unfair, just because of the skill level. So, I mean, obviously now Adam is most likely going to be a captain. So I guess we're going to see if we're going to get more commissioner bias. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping Adam's going to run this fairly. I'm hoping he's going to do everything in his power to make sure everyone has as much fun as possible. But only time will tell.
He's made himself last pick, I believe, so he's just like staying away from that bias as much as possible.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'd put him as last pick because I truly believe he's the most skilled captain out of all of us. So I think he's already doing right there. But I guess we will see in the future.
Well, I think this is our last topic, but I want to talk about trades.
Trades.
So, with no waivers, I think trades are much different than having a waiver system.
Yes.
They're much more important and impactful.
Yes.
But how did trades go down in the euhdl?
So there were... Well, the problem was, once again, we had people not wanting to play on certain teams, and that really forced people's hands. Now, I said from the get-go, if people didn't want to play on my team, I would not trade them. I would simply bench them. Because I think when you sign up for a draft league, you have to be expected not to be with your friends, possibly not even with people you like. I understand if there is a genuine reason and you have had past historical grievances, you are not on speaking terms at all. I think that's fair, and I think at that point you can speak to the commissioner, you can speak to your team owner, and you can request a trade. But I think saying you don't want to play on a team because you're not with your friends or someone that you don't really get on with, I think that's very childish. I think it ruins the whole point of a draft league, and that's why I put my foot down and said, if anyone pulls this stunt, I'm just not going to play you. I don't have time for this. We're all here to have fun. We're all here to group fight. And I think that's what people forget. Obviously, everyone wants to win. It's very competitive. The melee scene is very competitive. But at the end of the day, the whole point of a draft league is to get experience playing with people that you're not used to, make friends with people that you wouldn't always group fight with. So I think trades have to be done fairly. I think, obviously, going back to the Greasy and Blue trade, it was an extremely one-sided trade. It wasn't fair. So I think that's where the commissioner has to be the one to veto trades. I think if you're seeing something like that, obviously the commissioner was in the trade, so he was never going to veto it. But I think if you take, for instance, say I do first pick Star Blazer, and then, I don't know, someone's like, oh, trade Star for like, I don't even know.
Rookie.
Yeah. It's just no point. It's just a completely unfair trade. It's completely benefiting one side, and I think there's no reason to have a trade like that. I think trades. I'm in favor of having uneven trades, so 2 for 1, but I think the skill has to match up on both sides. I think if you're trading 2 players for 1 player, they have to be the same, if not more skilled. I don't think there's any point trading 2 weaker players for 1 stronger player. And that's just my opinion on trades. I'm sure a lot of people use trades to their advantage. They use them to try and increase their team, and obviously that's what you're hoping for with a trade. But in my opinion, when I trade for positions that I need. So I had it last season where I was missing flank players. So I had a lot of mid players. So I went to other owners and I was like, look, I've got mid players, you've got flank players, let's do a deal. But at the same time, you had other owners come in with stupid offers saying, oh yeah, I'll give you these 2 people for this one person. I'm like, that's just not a fair trade in the slightest, because these 2 can't block and straight. So I think trades just have to be fair, and I think that's where the commissioner needs to be vigilant. I think if you're just letting every trade go through and it's completely not fair, you're screwing all the other teams on the league.
Well, I think uneven trades are pretty rare, right? Because like both owners have to agree to a trade for it to go through, right? So like in every single trade, an owner either thinks that they're benefiting or that they're breaking even, right?
Yes.
So I think for like an uneven trade to happen, like there's really like something going on behind the scenes.
Yes, but obviously, like going back to the trade I mentioned earlier, clearly something was going on behind the scenes, and that should have been stopped. Because it doesn't make sense. If someone's trying to get rid of a really good player for no reason, you've got to start asking more questions. Are they looking to fix the league? Are there people who are refusing to play? There's clearly something more going on, and I think the commissioner has to deal with that.
You're prepared to like make trades, like no one's safe, I guess?
No, I mean, I said last year I wasn't going to trade some people, and then I ended up trading the first pick overall. So I wouldn't say I'm not prepared to make trades. Obviously, I think there's very little chance that I trade the first pick overall this time, because he's such a dominant player, and I'm sure a lot of people would love to have him on their team. But I am more than happy to look at trades. Yes, if I have a space that needs fill in, and they have someone I want, and I have someone they want, if the deal works, I am more than happy to go through with it.
Cool. Well, we are at the end. Do you have any final thoughts on the upcoming draft league?
No, I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope we all have fun, and I hope I win. I mean, that's the best I can hope for.
Awesome. This has been the Dory interview. Thank you, Dory.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.